Hi guys, welcome back to the final part of the Blender workshop, where we're gonna be animating this pen right here. Forgot to mention in the last session that in order to save this render, you actually have to go into image and save, and yeah, you just save it anywhere in the folder you determined before, but you can actually just save it anywhere here. Yeah. Just make sure that compression is set to 0, so it has the nicest, most crisp quality color, most quality image. Yeah, save as image, and that's it. And we can go straight into rendering, right? I think for rendering this one, we're gonna turn off the plane. Ooh, makes it very dark, right? And we're gonna restore the original position of this pen. So if you click on the empty right here, you can actually just make sure everything here is set to 0, right? And as well as the position, right? So now it's over there at 0. And also the camera, you want to set it back to where it was at the 0 position right here. Like that. And this is the depth of field. I think at this point it's preferable to have the depth of field to be like parented already to the design. So just gonna go back to shaded mode and turn on this toggle X-ray. Yeah, and to have a bit better control. Right. I'm sorry if I'm going a bit faster here, because I assume that if you are at this point, you would like to know this information really quickly because you're very familiar with Blender already. Yeah. So, with the camera pointing down at the origin, we are gonna add an empty. Right. Okay, so for this very simple animation, we can actually just add the music directly into Blender, and I've prepared the file for that. If we go into the video sequencer, up here in add, you can actually add sound, and select the music that you want to add in and just add sound strip. It's also good to shift left arrow and position this as like at the beginning point. Hopefully it's not so loud, I think. Yeah, so you play. Right, so you can previously when I didn't have like a nice GPU and when the animation doesn't play in real time, I actually just like play the music and open the stopwatch and lap and just press like the lap where the syncopation of the music happens. Yeah, and then with that time, you time it to the frame per second to get the specific frame that you need to put your keyframe at. So it's quite a hassle, but it's definitely doable. In this case, if you can like play the animation in real time, it's better to just directly like keyframe the animation according to the syncopation of the music inside Blender. Yeah, so I'm just gonna shift this up a little bit, move this in. Alright, I already prepared like this file to be syncopated with the music as well, so that's nice. I guess. Right. Right. Okay, so like after adjusting the UV unwrap on this for a little bit, I think our animation can afford to be a bit longer. So in here, you would change this frame start and end to like a higher value. In this case, I think it's around 900, which is the length of the animation on the screen, the UI animation on this small screen here. Right. So I'm gonna show you 3 types of animation. I guess not 3 types, just 3 short animation that you can do. The first is just a simple pan, right? 3, rotate it to 90 degree. Rotate the camera to 90 degree and position it around here. Well, it doesn't. Wow, that's a creepy looking pen, right? I think in this case you wanna move this over here, as I said, and move this like over here maybe. This is rim light, should be around here. And I think in this case it would also be good to have like another light shining in this direction, and yeah, in order to make like the whole light to be a bit, the whole environment to be a bit brighter, and I want to have like a nice soft lit area over here. I have a feeling the pen is also a bit too shiny. Right, so something like that, I think. And turn this on as well. Okay. Maybe this light should have a color to it. Something like that, I suppose, wouldn't hurt. Yeah, okay. So it looks a bit cooler, I guess. Right, so a very simple pen animation happens as such. So to insert a keyframe, you would press I to insert, and then insert keyframe menu. You can insert so many different kind of keyframe, but for a pen animation you only need location data. So you have one keyframe over here, and you move forward a little bit, like say around there, and GX to move it like around there, for example. And then you have to insert another keyframe over here, location, right? So now if you play it, let me turn off this so you can see the face as well. Shift left arrow to go to the first frame. Right, so yeah, animation, right? I think it's good for this to move over here first so it doesn't see, and so let's see, forgot to add a keyframe. So over here you also need to, when you move it to a new position where your keyframe used to be at, you have to add another keyframe here as well. Right. So that is a very simple animation. To go into more detail, you can actually select both keyframe, right click, and in interpolation mode, because I think it's nicer for like pen animation to have like a linear kind of interpolation where it doesn't ease in when it starts and doesn't ease out when it ends. So it already start with some velocity and end like with the same velocity essentially. I think it's nicer like that. In some cases, you can add some ease in and out by simply just select all the keyframe here, right click and select like the interpolation to be Bezier or a different kind of interpolation here. Yeah. Alright. So the next animation is gonna have a bit more control, so I'm just gonna select both of these and X to delete, right? And position this again to be in the middle. The next animation is gonna have a bit more control, in which we are going to add like an empty that drive the pen of this camera. Right. So in environment, we're gonna add an empty, maybe a sphere this time, so we can differentiate all the empties that we already had. Move the empty to the location of where you want to focus the pen to. Select the camera, then select the empty, right? Control P if you remember. Select the child first and the parent last. Control P to parent, and select object keep transform. So what happens now is, as you rotate the empty, the camera is gonna be rotated as well. It's gonna pan around the object. Pretty cool. Again, position it at a certain angle, I, and then to insert a keyframe, and then press on rotation. You can also move. Okay, after that you can move forward a a little bit and rotate it to another location. Yeah, I rotation to insert another keyframe. So now it has like the automatic like bezier to it. So if you really pay attention, it actually starts slow and becomes faster in the middle and then ends slow. Again, I think it's nice to have like the linear interpolation here for like these kind of pan animation. Yeah, because the reason for this is actually there's really no reason to it. I think it just looked better. But in some cases you actually want a bit of ease in and then a bit of ease out. For this animation, however, I think ease in, ease out is good because the music is like a bit funky, you know. So for that amount of control, we have to change from using the timeline to using the graph. The graph could be a bit daunting, but we're gonna go through it very quickly, and hopefully it'll be useful for you and the animation. So to navigate around this graph, you hold down onto the middle mouse button to like pan it around, and the control key you press down and just move it up and down to like zoom in, or laterally to like make the curve like more visible. Yeah. So as you can see here, when it rotates, you can see this oh my god, if you can see this back, oh, what happened to it? Right, okay. As it rotates, you can see over here that only the Z value is rotating. That means over here you actually don't need X and Y rotation value, you only care about the Z, right? If you listen to the music as well, it's so over here is where I want the animation to be the fastest, because it's hitting like a syncopated part in the music. So I would GX to move this keyframe forward a little bit, like around here. And then what I would do next is select both keyframe and scale it. But before we do that, there is also a thing called the 2D cursor over here. So right now, bounding box center is selected, which means when you scale it, it's gonna move away from wherever the center point between these two keyframes are. In order to like adjust the curve, we would have to select individual center. So in this case, when we scale it, it's gonna scale only in the middle, like that. Like it's gonna scale around every center point. The keyframe center point. Oh my god, it's very late. It is very late. Like so. Alright, so this is before. And if we like really make it like really extreme, then it's gonna be something like, yeah, something like that, very extreme. I think a bit to the left. Yeah, so at the fastest points, like it hits where the syncopation happens in the music, which is pretty cool, I think. Yeah, so that is a very simple pan animation. The last one, I think, is gonna be the most elaborate animation yet, and I think this is what I use a lot of time in my workflow, and I think yeah, it's very useful, and it's quite complicated, so I hope you can follow along. Actually, it's not, and it appears difficult. It's actually very simple to set up. So for this, I'm gonna delete this empty, and to make sure the camera is returned to its original position. And for that, I'm gonna make sure that the location is at 0, and also rotation is gonna all be reset to 0. Right, so this is the camera. We're gonna add an empty to this. I'm gonna select a sphere again. Actually, I think it's better to select a plane axis. Just a preference. Yeah, no reason, just preference. And then I'm gonna select the camera, select this new empty and parent it to the empty, like so. This is new camera, I suppose. So now if you move this empty, the camera is moving along with it. Yeah. And the next part is like sort of like the fun part of this. We're gonna build like a roller coaster around this pen, right? And we're gonna ask this camera empty to move along that that like roller coaster while looking at the pen design. I think it's gonna be quite cool, I think. Yeah, so to add a curve, we're gonna shift A and add a Bezier curve, like so. And this is where like most of the eyeballing happens. So you just need to position the curve like around the pen design thing around here, top view. Press tab, and then you can adjust these points like slowly to make a roller coaster around the pen. Yeah, just gonna do a very rough one. So you press E to extrude and R to rotate. And that is most of the function. Maybe at some point it can be a bit closer. The rule of thumb, I guess, like the only rule actually is just to not have too many kinks in the roller coaster. If not, it's gonna look a bit jittery. Yeah. And let's end like that. Lock it to the Y, and yeah, let's end like that. You can also go like here, press tab, and then edit some of these points to move like up and down, so it looks a bit more interesting, I guess. Cheesy, a bit downwards, this one a bit upwards. I suppose, I hope it looks okay. We'll find out. Yeah, okay. Doesn't look very smooth, but you really need some time to dial in some of these movements, and depending on what you want to look at, you also need to dial in like this curve. Yeah, so at this point it's gonna be closer, so it's gonna be more zoomed in, and this point is gonna be further away, and this is just like a moving away kind of motion, that kind of thing. Yeah. So right now we are going to parent the we're gonna add some constraints to the camera movement. To do this, we're gonna click on this camera empty, and go to the constraint tab. In here we're going to add a follow path constraint, and we're gonna select the Bezier curve right here. So as you can see, the camera is positioned at the start of the Bezier curve like that, and we're gonna subsequently animate this offset to a -100, which is gonna be at the end of the path. Yeah. Next thing we need to do is to ask the camera to actually look at the pen itself. So for this, we're gonna select the camera empty, and we're gonna add a track to constraint. This one, using the eyedropper, we're gonna select the screen, I suppose. Right. And right now we are going to, I think, let's play a segment of the music. I think around here should be a nice like end with this like short animation segment. So 225. And now we're gonna animate this camera to follow this roller coaster, and yeah, we're gonna have like a sort of like a speed ramp effect as well. embedded within Blender, so you don't have to do any post-processing. Right, to do that, in the first keyframe, we're gonna select the empty and go back to constraint. And in the follow path, we are going to set the offset to 0, press an I, like hover over the offset value and just press I. And to the end of the animation, you're gonna hover, like we're gonna input like the value of -100 and press I to add a keyframe. So if you see now, like over here in the screen, you can see that the camera is actually moving along the roller coaster and while looking at the pen design. But right now it's looking a bit odd because the track tool is yeah, it's not really looking at the screen properly. So to fix this, a quick simple fix is just to, at the beginning position, shift left arrow, go to the side view, simply to tilt the camera upwards. Right, like that. And then continue to animate the camera such that the pen is like in the middle of the screen or wherever you want the camera to look at. Right, so here for example, you're gonna press R, and in order to lock it to like the original position, like you're gonna press, I think it's, if it's not X, I think it is, right, local X. So what I did is press R, X is gonna be global X, it's gonna rotate the camera according to like global X. But if you press X again, it's gonna remember the local X of the empty, so it's gonna rotate the camera as such. So that is RXX, right? And here you can add like a keyframe, rotation of the camera. You go to the beginning, and you can actually add keyframe for the rotation of the camera. And as it move along, whenever you see it's getting out of frame, like say for this one for example, you can just RXX and rotate it such that the pen becomes in frame again. I rotation, and you just keep doing this until you finish the whole roller coaster ride. So in the end, it's a bit low, so we're gonna press RXX and rotate this as such so that it's in the middle, I guess. Roughly that is like the workflow for this. Alright, okay, now the cool part about this is that you can do the speed ramp effect directly in Blender without having to like just render this, export it, and then like speed ramp it inside After Effects or Premiere. To do this, you're gonna have to select the camera empty, and see an offset curve, like just a very simple offset curve like here. Yeah, right. What I usually do is to add a marker where the syncopation of the music happens. So let's listen again and try to add some marker by pressing M. Press M to add a marker. I think the first one is a bit off, so I'm gonna delete the marker and try again. Right. I think we're not gonna use all of these markers. We're only where it makes sense to like make the animation a bit more syncopated, then we'll use these markers. But for now, it kind of works. I think. Yeah. So what happens now is that we're gonna select the empty, if we can do it. Right, okay. The keyframe of the empty, we can select both of them, scale it down a bit, right? And then we're gonna build another roller coaster within the roller coaster. Essentially, we're just gonna make this graph syncopated to the music, right? With that, the first point is around like frame 22. So what I would do is select this keyframe and then press Shift D to duplicate this keyframe. And all we need to make sure is to have the drop happen. So now I'm gonna Shift D again. The drop happen on the syncopation, right? Right now it's and most of this is just like fine tuning. We really go in and adjust like the scaling of these keyframes. So this one I'm gonna make it a bit smaller and rotate a little bit. This one also. Yeah. So essentially, if you trying to understand this graph, what it's doing is that it starts slowly. This is a distance to time graph, right? If you are familiar with AE, it should make sense. This is a distance to time graph. If the slope is shallow, the speed is slow. If the slope is steep, the speed is fast. So essentially, it starts slow and it stays slow here, and it ramps up really quickly to the next point. Yeah, like that. I think it's a bit too fast. Yeah, I'm just gonna make it like that. And for speed ramping is essentially building these stairs, like the slow segment and then a fast segment, and then it becomes slow again. Yeah, things like that. Something like that. Can make it. So most of this is just adjusting the curve until you get like a nice result. So I'm gonna spend some time here just messing around with the curve. Yeah. Shift D just to make sure that it bottom out at like the syncopation points. Yeah. So I guess this is gonna take a while. Yeah. Usually I would have a bit more control, but for the purpose of the demonstration, this is done very quickly, but you can spend way too long just fine-tuning all these little points. So yeah, I think hopefully it turns out okay. If not, we're gonna have to like go back and tweak more of this, I suppose. But yeah. I think this one is not needed. And this one should decrease a little bit, like that. Okay, let's try to play this. It probably doesn't look very good because it's a very long sequence and there are many steps, but we'll see. Yeah, okay. Well, I guess it's not a very good demonstration of like the ability of this, but you really should spend like a lot of time to just tweak these curves in order to get like the desired animation. Like the only rule is that if the slope is shallow, the speed is fast. If the slope is steep, the speed is. If the slope is shallow, the speed is slow. If the slope is steep, the speed is fast. That is essentially everything. Yeah. One last thing is that you can have multiple camera inside one sequence, so you don't have to like export just this and then like stitch all the animation in Premiere. you can actually just first let me extend the timeline to something like, I don't know, 800. And if you have another camera, like say let me just add a camera very quickly. Shift D to duplicate, and I'm gonna unparent it by pressing Alt P. Clear parent and keep transformation. Right, so now the camera is like outside here, and I'm just gonna position it roughly to like around here, for example. You need to, for this, you need to go back to the dope sheets, and where the animation, when the first sequence ends, say around here, for example, you would press Control and then B to switch to camera 1. So like before this, I think at the beginning you should specify that the animation start with this camera instead. I think there's a mistake. Wait, no, never mind, there's no mistake. Make no mistake. So select the first camera, and at the beginning we're gonna press Control B to make sure that the animation start with the first camera, and then at this point it's gonna switch to the second one, right? Right now the second one is not really looking at anything, so let me adjust it just a little bit. Yeah, so the first sequence finishes and it switched to the second camera, and this one you can continue to animate. So essentially you're gonna have like the whole sequence being done entirely inside Blender, so you don't have to do like post-compositing inside Premiere or After Effects, which is nice. So I think my demonstration wasn't very good in like illustrating what the proper roller coaster animation should be. So I think I'm just gonna break down like a sequence here that I did for the pen. So this one is a simple, if you observe the camera over here, it's a simple just move in. Yeah, and I just zoom out very quickly. Sorry, not move in, but zoom out very quickly. Yeah, so okay, I selected the wrong camera. Give me a second. I will do this. Yep, this one, right? So the first sequence is just this camera moving out very quickly, and then moving back in, right? So if you look at the graph right here, the same principle applies. If it's shallow, it's slow, and if it's steep, it's fast. Right, so here I hide some of the unnecessary information, so we only care about, like, say it's moving on the y-axis, for example. That means we only care about the y location, as you can see here. It's sort of like it moved very slowly and then it ramps up quickly, and then it stays stagnant for a while, and then the zoom in happens extremely quickly, like that. Yeah, like at this point over here. Yep. Right, another thing, I think that sequence was quite interesting as well. The one where it drops and there's like a bit of a bounce that happens to it. I think if I could find the camera, oh, it's the pen moving, right? Okay, then it should be the empty, like the pen over here must be, right? Yeah, I think it's this one, right? I think it's that one. I think it's correct. It's just that I couldn't really find the exact moment when it drops. Okay, right. This is it. This is the curve. So Z location is because it's dropping on the Z axis, So what happens is at the very top it's gonna start fast, you know, like yeah, because of like gravity, instantly you have like a 0.9, what am I saying? Instantly you have like a minus 9.81 like meters square per second kind of acceleration going downwards, so it's very fast. And when it dips, it sort of go beyond the endpoint a little bit. So here you can see that I drag like this handle downwards. Essentially it's gonna go beyond like the end keyframe and then go back up to the end keyframe. So that's how you do like a little bounce. Yeah. And just to make sure it's timed to the music as well, and that's about it. Yeah, so this is the Z location curve, and this is how you do like a nice little bounce. A quicker way of doing this is just to select these, for example, and then you go into interpolation mode and like dynamic effects back, and you instantly have like a bounce effect. But this gives you a bit more control to understand like how the curve actually works. Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. Let's try one of the roller coaster sequence. Yep, this is one of the roller coaster sequence. So I think that is in camera 1. Camera 1 is this one, right? So let's just observe this from the top view here. Yeah, so if you see this empty and like the keyframe, it's essentially the same thing, the offset and the stairs, as you can see here. This one right here, right? It's the same stair effect. So whenever the syncopation happens, the beat is gonna land in this case. Like it's gonna land over here at this point, this point, this point, and this point, the final one. Yeah, essentially starts slow, ramps up fast, becomes slow again, fast, slow, fast, slow, fast, and slow. Yeah. And then it and transition directly into like camera 2 over here. As I showed before, you can press Ctrl B to add a camera continuously to the sequence so it never ends. So it can get very messy. It's gonna be a bit hard to see things, so I'd recommend to put like every camera in its own collection, so you can just turn off the one that you don't want to see and just like focus on the one that you're animating at like currently. Yeah, so this sort of organization will help a lot. Other than that, I think that's about it. Oh, one last thing. How did I time this screen animation to the music as well? It was actually exported afterwards. So what happens is this whole sequence is just static. I export like a preview of this animation. You can do this by simply going into the output setting, and the file format, choose this one. This one, right? And over here under view, you can click on viewport render animation. It's gonna generate like a preview animation of like the viewport, just this window over here, and you can overlay like the screen, and then from there you can animate like the screen elements and then import it back into Blender, so the screen itself is also syncopated with the music, as you can see here. Yeah, and when you're happy with everything, you just have to change everything back to PNG, make sure that there's no compression. In render, just click on render animation and wait like a night or two, and yeah, it should be done. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think that's everything that I know so far in Blender. It's a very powerful software, and when you have like a specific thing you need to do, just Google it. For example, you just need to do like a particle system, or you want to melt something, you Google it, like, and then there are so many answers for you to apply. But for product rendering and product animation, like from a industrial design point of view. I think this is everything that I know and everything that I do. Yeah, that's about it, I think. If you have any question, please leave a comment. No, if you have any question, I'll be here, yeah, to clarify them, or yeah, if you have any like things you're not so sure about, you can also ask me. If there is any troubleshooting, I'll try to troubleshoot. Probably you won't be able to troubleshoot like everything, but I'll try to troubleshoot if you have any issues. Yeah, other than that, I think Blender is a very powerful software, and yeah, you should use it.